that you're not just grateful for that thing because it's nice, but you're grateful for that thing because it aligns and it reminds you of the best of who you are. And when we can apply gratitude this way in our lives, we don't just supercharge gratitude for the moment, but we use it, the insights that are derived from those exercises, as an ongoing companion throughout our lives.
Welcome to The Shift, where we search for ways to do better by thinking better.
Whether you're going through a major life change, looking to deepen your understanding of yourself, or hoping to improve your relationships with others, The Shift is here for you.
We're your hosts, Isla and Yashar, an endlessly curious sister and brother team.
As certified brain-based executive coaches with backgrounds in medicine and management, we combine the neurosciences, performance psychology, strategic planning methodology, and mindfulness techniques to empower your transformation from the inside out.
Join us in conversation as we explore better ways to show up for ourselves and each other.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Shift. Today we're talking about gratitude. Nope, don't turn off this episode. I know, roll eyes, boring. Everybody wants to put this away. But the reason we're going to talk about gratitude today is because I think the way we're going to talk about this idea is going to shift the way you think about gratitude. I've been teaching gratitude for many, many years now as a clinician and as a coach. And often I find that people don't appreciate the level or the depth in which gratitude can work, how it works. And they end up doing a half job of what's really available when gratitude is applied. So I really want to take the moment to talk about it and really break down what gratitude is and hopefully give you some tools that can supercharge gratitude in your life. So what do you think about that, Isla? Are you ready to have this conversation?
Yeah, I think this is funny because gratitude to me is like mindfulness. You know, these terms that people are like, yeah, me too, done it, know it. But in most cases, people actually don't quite understand what these things mean as concepts, but more importantly, they haven't integrated it in their life to actually mean something relevant. And what I mean by that is that we think we know, but we don't. And then we think we do it, but we don't. So it's this weird relationship with these things that we feel like we have to check off a checklist to say, I've done that. But the reality is these concepts of mindfulness, or in this case, we're talking about gratitude, are so much deeper and more complex. And finding a way that we can integrate it into our lives in a way that will actually serve us and empower us and do the thing it's meant to do takes a bunch more steps that sometimes people gloss over.
Yeah, and I think if we're both honest, we gloss over it too, especially if things get hard and we're playing the role of victim in whatever situation, and we have to really, bring mindfulness, as you said, awareness to the situation, and then step into gratitude consciously.
Yeah. There was an example I remember I was doing a workshop, and as you know, and our audience probably knows by now, that we ask everyone to do the leadership code before working with us or, showing up to a discovery call or anything, just so they get a sense of that version of them. We really love our leadership code. It's a deep visualization to get to know your authentic leadership style, your own secret sauce, your core values. And I remember at one workshop, me asking, the participants who's done it, who's not, any feedback. And, one of the participants said, yeah, I've done visualizations before, so I didn't do this one. And it was such a moment where I thought, what? Because, and I feel like people kind of deal with gratitude like that. Like I was grateful once, or I did that thing once, like, isn't that enough? And I was like, no. One, not all visualizations are created equal. They're all for different purposes. And the whole point is to guide you to a different path. And this one in particular does this thing. So maybe the one you did before was meant to guide you to another thing. And I think gratitude, it can be looked at kind of like that. It's like, this is a tool, and understand the complexities of how they work and how it shows up in your life and how do you use it is going to be unique for every time you are bringing your awareness to it and, fortifying these muscles.
Exactly. That's very, very well said. And I think Where I would love to start this discussion is actually to kind of talk about what gratitude is not before we get into what gratitude is. And what gratitude is not is simply, it's not a comparison to others and their situation.
Mhm.
We hear this a lot, like, I should eat all the food on my plate, or I should be grateful for the food on my plate because they're starving children, and pick your favorite country or spot in the world. That in itself seems like a gratitude statement, but it's actually not. It's just a comparator. And another example, is I should be grateful for the job I have because I know so many people are struggling to find work right now. I should be grateful for my marriage because I know other people are feeling lonely. These statements have many problems to them, but two main problems that I want to cover. And the first one is, as I stated in the examples, they usually start with a should, right? There's a I should this, I should be grateful, I should enjoy this moment. And then you give the reason for that. And whenever you have a should in the sentence, you have to recognize that's a command versus a desire. You're commanding yourself to move in a direction versus tapping into the desire, to the excitement, to the engagement of the situation. And so that's the first problem I hear a lot when people are practicing some form of what they think is gratitude. And the other problem in this situation is, as I said off the hop, you're comparing yourself to another person and another person's situation. And there will always be someone above or below whatever standard you place for yourself, from your looks to finances to material possessions to even, I've heard in spiritual path and evolution conversations, where someone will always be above you or below you. And comparison is generally a very slippery slope and is the opposite to what gratitude actually is helping us with from a mental, emotional perspective.
I think that's so critical. I think most of us, really engage with gratitude from a point of comparison, even if we don't mean to. But underlying comparison is actually judgment, which is antithetical to gratitude itself. But that's probably our first experience with how we start trying to be grateful. Well, I have this and this other person doesn't. But when we realize that is a form of judgment, it helps us kind of shift that way of thinking and processing information, and allows us to realign with the core of gratitude, which I know you're going to now take us to. So I'm interested in you giving us the tools or redefining gratitude for us.
Yeah, you said that really well again, Isla, because the only positive I can see with that comparator act is like perspective taking. Like maybe it wakes you up to a mindset of like, okay, I've been really crummy about this one thing. And if I have some perspective and realize like there's something here to actually be grateful for, and it takes a comparator to get there, then I guess I'll give you a percentage of positive around that. But like I said, that can be so slippery because if you're comparing and you're below the standard and whatever your mindset is, then you can really get into a place where now you're piling on the negative side of things. And that's not obviously going to be very helpful.
I would say then if you're using that caveat of how to, dissect this comparison, is that it has to be from you to you and still not others. Because when others come into play, we're again back into that judgmental role of something is better than something else. And that's really not our place. But I think when you look at with yourself, like I can give a personal example of me comparing myself to myself. When I'm in a hard situation where I'm really having a difficult time, I remember saying like, this moment is hard, but this hard I'm more grateful for than the hard that was before. Like I made these series of changes that were difficult, but I'm so grateful. Even if this is dark, and even though I don't know the future or the outcome of this situation, I'm deeply grateful for the freedom I have right now that I didn't have before because I made these hard choices. So, both are hard, but I'm grateful that I'm in a place where I could have made these choices and, claim this new freedom that was not available to me before. So I am doing a type of comparison, but it's really with me to me, showing myself the growth that has happened, the evolution that's happened, and it's empowering me feeling grateful for this moment, even though the moment may not look like butterflies and rainbows. I'm showing deep gratitude for my strength, my resilience, my grit, and my grace.
Yeah. Again, I think what you really did there is actually just define what gratitude is. And
I took it away. Okay, back to you. You tell us what gratitude is.
no, but that's a great example, because what you're doing is you're taking a situation and you're having appreciation for the positive in that situation. So you did compare it to yourself in the past, but you then aligned yourself and you appreciated the positive in the situation, which is the growth you noticed in the state that you're in, the situation that you're in comparison to your past. Now, if we just cut the comparison altogether, then maybe that's the most ideal or purest form of what gratitude is having an appreciation for the positive in a situation, period, end of story.
So, okay, before we move on, because I know you want to supercharge our gratitude, I want to just repeat the critical nuggets that you said. So, gratitude is not shooting all over yourself. Let's start there, because I think that's a critical one. Gratitude has to come from a deep alignment with your values. You use the word desire, but I'm using the word values, but it's really something that feels in flow with you, that even in a difficult time, this choice, this moment is in line with your highest self, your divine purpose, the reason why you're doing what you're doing. And that doesn't come from a should place. Right?
Right. Exactly. It can't come from a should place. It's much better to come from a desired state, as I said, than a commanding state. And so if there's a value there for you, then it would make more sense to articulate it in a way where there's engagement and excitement and desire and passion and purpose to move in that direction versus a command of you're doing it wrong, do it better.
Right. Because it aligns with your why.
Correct.
Okay. So that's number one. Don't should all over your gratitude. Number two, I think the critical part, again, I really think this is a mistake we all make repeatedly, is that gratitude is not about comparison.
That's right.
And I think that those two elements have to be remembered when we are, refining our relationship with gratitude and using this new muscle, is to ensure that these two things, we see it through these lenses of not shooting all over ourselves and not comparing to others.
So now that we know what gratitude isn't, and we know gratitude is looking for the positive in the situation, having an appreciation for the positive in any situation, I want to give some tools where we can supercharge gratitude in our lives. And the first one I'm going to start with is maybe the hardest one, because we're trying to take our mindset from only seeing the challenge and to move it along into gratitude, opportunities for growth, opportunities for personal development, opportunities to see a positive directly because of this challenge that's entered into our lives. So a way of doing that is taking a challenge and writing out 3 positives that have come up or are available to you directly because of this challenge entering your life. So a simple example could be you get a flat tire. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants a flat tire. Nobody wants to be stuck at the side of the road, but because of that one situation, what are 3 positives or personal development gifts that have come up because of that situation?
So wait, didn't that happen to you recently, the flat tire?
It did. And that's why I thought of it as an example.
Okay. So then tell us, if this was your challenge, what are 3 gifts that presented to you from that challenge?
Yeah. So to set the scene a little bit, I just moved to Mexico with my family. We after many months, we decided to purchase a car. I was excited because the following day we were going with our friends to a different city to explore. And I wanted to head out to the grocery store and get some goodies for the car ride. I had my tunes blaring. I was on the road by myself. It was around 7 p.m. I was ready just to enjoy myself. And then I hit a major pothole and kind of turned into it a little bit too hard, and it popped my tire from the inside. And so before I knew it, I was in an empty parking lot around 7 p.m. in a new country, in a new city, barely know the language, and felt incredibly, first of all, actually, I felt stupid for making that mistake. I have to admit that. And scared and lonely, and I didn't know what to do. And so here I am in this empty parking lot, very much in a foul mood. And so instead of going through all the details of what happened, I'm going to jump to the gifts. I'm going to jump to the places and the parts of the story that I have immense gratitude for, now that I've experienced that. So a little note here, you don't get to do this exercise in the middle of the trauma or the challenge. That's not necessarily what this exercise is set up for always. It can be set up that way if this is more of a chronic challenge you're working through and you're trying to find elements to be grateful for. But in this situation, it was an acute situation. I was stuck where I was, and I needed help. And so I took the time afterwards to work on these gratitude points to rewire the story in my head. Okay. Actually, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's important because we talk a lot about reframing, shifting narratives, etc. So this is a critical moment that this could have been a woe is me story, but you took the part to actively rewire the narrative to draw out the gratitude and the lessons, because you knew ultimately that would feed your mindset, that would feed your mental health, that would feed, your muscles going forward and nourish your, way in which you look at your life. So 100%, I think it's critical. I think, if we are able to do that with the challenges that we're faced, again, we end up using muscles that will serve us, build the resilience we talk about so much, and build that kind of higher thinking that we're constantly trying to empower. Yeah. So what were your gifts?
Yes. So first and foremost, one of the major gifts was the amount of people that actually came to help. And in my broken Spanish, there were individuals that just wanted to help and that got on the ground and got dirty to try to get this tire fixed with me and for me. And I actually remember one younger gentleman, because the tire was actually stuck a little bit and we couldn't get it off the rim. And so he got a lead pipe. I don't know where he found that lead pipe from. And he was doing his best to get it off, and he finally did. And it was quite helpful. And I handed him a little bit of money just to say, thank you so much for the help. And he insisted that I wouldn't pay him. And in our broken communication, there's a lot of smiling, a lot of handshaking. And I finally convinced him to take the money, and that would be my honor. And so that was one part that I feel really grateful for, and that I definitely don't think I would have experienced if I wasn't stuck in a situation like that, where I had to be vulnerable enough to accept someone else's help, and not just even someone else's help, multiple people's help. And so that was one of the big pieces for me. When you're vulnerable and when you're scared, there's still opportunities to be helped, and people care. So
that also rewires a trust narrative, because we are built in societies and people and places and stories that tell us not to trust one another, that it also is there's so much gratitude to have moments like that to help you build the trust narrative as well, to show what is also possible.
Correct. And another area of gratitude for me was actually for myself, because as I said, I was really scared. I felt stupid. I felt all those things, but then I put into practice all the tools that I teach. And so there was a lot of grounding. There's a lot of reminding of myself of what I'm capable of and how I can work this through. There's a lot of what I like to do, which is like, worst case scenario planning that helps me really get my head on straight. And I was like, okay, you leave the car, you get in a taxi, you go, it's a car. Like I went through all the pieces of like, what are you so afraid of? Like you're going to figure this out. And so re-engaging in the story after this was all said and done, I got to really recognize how much I practiced all the mindset muscles that we teach so many people. And so it was a nice moment to recognize that, the weight was heavy, but I could lift it. And so that was nice for me too, as a gratitude point.
I love that one because it also touches on something we talk about often, which is inventory, which is, we think of these worst case scenarios, as you said, but this built inventory of how you will find the tools when need to, surmount the challenge. And that built inventory within your body to know that this is possible. You can do hard things. You've already done hard things. And here you are, facing something that if, I asked you in the morning, it would be like dread. And now it's like new muscles, like I can handle it.
Correct. And kind of like a tangential thought off of that is the going back to the scene of the crime, so to speak. I actually drive on this road a lot. Yeah. It's a main road that I use and I continuously use. And so I go by that same area 3-4 times a week, maybe. And the first few times I actually noticed I was getting nervous again. I noticed my body was, tightening up again. And it was only by reminding myself that just because something happened once doesn't mean it has to happen again. Just because something was hard once doesn't mean it has to be hard again. And when it was hard, as we just discussed, you had the tools and the support to be able to work through it. Then this spot on the road, this area, is just a place of a story that something has happened once, but probably about 100 more times, nothing has happened. And so it gave me the opportunity to once again learn, what am I choosing as my mindset? If I'm, as the saying goes, if you're skiing down that hill and there's one pothole, are you going to go right into the pothole, or are you going to use the rest of the mountain that's available to you? What are you going to focus on? And what now that area reminds me of is that story, the story that something was hard and I worked through it and others were there to support me. And because I had a flat tire, I have this whole developed storyline and ideas and mindset exercises. And if that didn't happen, then I wouldn't have that available to me. So now I can see where I can be grateful for that experience versus just cursing it.
I think this is really important because, negative storylines, because I think they are, enforced by our most primal systems of fear, have a gravitational pull to kind of take over. So it does take active work like that to not let the one instant override the 100 instances, and it does take a consciousness and self-awareness to rewrite this narrative, to not allow for the one to be the only story you tell. But again, that's because you took this time to take this moment, pull the gifts of gratitude, and really highlight the rewiring that's happening when you tell a new type of story. I think this is why it's so critical that when we do episodes like this, or when we work with our clients, to show this is where, when we talk about integration, this is what we're talking about. Reading a book, loving a quote, sharing something inspirational is wonderful, but that's not when this stuff is actually going to embed in our daily lives to actually work for us and with us. And I think when we're doing this example right now, showing all these steps you're taking highlights the integration. Yes, it might feel like a lot of work, but it's not the more you do it. And the whole point is, if we're doing this stuff, it's because we're ultimately trying to shift our mindset and shift our narratives in a way that will serve us to align with the type of life and relationships we want to have. So I guess at the beginning of it becomes, is that what you want? And if yes, this is the types of reps that we're looking to do to be able to align and bring us to that version of us that will thrive.
Yeah, and integration is absolutely where all of this actually comes to life. And so I want to use another tool, another supercharged gratitude tool, to showcase how else gratitude can be integrated into our day-to-day. And this time, I want to coach you through it, Isla, if you're okay with that.
Okay.
All right. So this one is a pretty simple one. It's fun. It can actually sound a little bit annoying, but if you stay with me, it could be a lot of fun. And so what we're going to do
I'm used to staying with you when I'm annoyed with you. So I think I have
Good. So we're set for success here. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is you're going to think of something you're grateful for. You don't have to think about the big things in your life, though you can. You can also just think of something smaller that you're grateful for. And I'm going to ask you why you're grateful for that thing. And we're going to go through a series of whys to come down to the root of understanding of your appreciation or your gratitude for the thing you picked. And then I won't ruin the punchline, and we'll see where we end up with.
Okay, I'm going to pick something maybe strange, but a lot of things are going through my head and I don't know what to pick. So I'm going to pick, I'm grateful for my heart.
Okay, perfect. So why did you pick your heart to be grateful for?
Because it has been my guide through really difficult times.
And why is it important for you to have a guide through difficult times?
Because my anchor in trying to make choices has to, for me, be internal.
And what's the value of it being internal for you?
If it's internal and aligned with my values, and in this case, my heart, I know even when it's wrong, it's right.
And why would you make a statement like that for yourself?
Because life is full of hard choices. There will always be challenges. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be change. So me having a way to navigate those choppy waters is critical.
And the way you navigate those choppy waters is by connecting to your heart.
Yes.
And so if you could say one sentence for why you're grateful for your heart, what would it be?
I'm grateful for my heart for being my guide.
Okay. So I asked you why 4 or maybe 5 times in that scenario. And what's interesting is if we went further and further down, we would become more and more clear about why you picked your heart or anything else for that matter to be grateful for. And not just why you picked it, but how it's deeply aligned with the version of you that you're most inspired to be. And I think this is the point of the supercharged exercise here. I've done this with people who have picked their dog, the sun, a stoplight, a green light, the rain, the mountains, the desert. It doesn't matter. I've done this so often. And when you take the time to ask yourself or ask a friend why 5, 10 times and do what I just did with you, Isla, you don't just become clear on why you picked the thing you're grateful for, but like I said, you become clear on how that thing brings to life the best of you. And so that's the supercharge of gratitude. So next time you see the sun, or you place your hand on your heart, or you see your dog, or whatever you pick, it's not just, oh, I like it. It's, oh, it reminds me of the power within. Oh, it reminds me of the version of me that I am living this life for. Oh, it reminds me of how I can step into what's challenging with much more gratitude and much more presence and engagement, because it is a reminder of who you are. And that is why this is such a supercharged exercise.
Well, thank you for, coaching me on that moment of gratitude. Again, it wasn't planned. So, it was unexpected. I didn't know I was going to pick my heart, and I didn't know what would come of the question. So I really appreciate, the process in itself. And I think ultimately what it also did for me is highlight something that now I can go back to. So that was like an unexpected thing that I know now because I spent this time reestablishing my relationship with my heart and why I'm so grateful for it. It almost brought it to the surface. So I feel like, in an hour or two or a day or a year, there's like a new type of relationship and language around it that I can access. So the gratitude almost is like more to the surface because we did this exercise. I can, utilize it and leverage it when I need it most.
Yeah. And that's the power of taking what, maybe 2 minutes we did that whole exercise. And now it's something that you can carry forward for a lot longer than that. And so the whole point of this episode was we were hoping to have a shift in how people see gratitude, utilize gratitude, and think about gratitude. And as a reminder, gratitude is not a comparison to others or their situation. You are not looking at your situation and comparing it to someone else's and saying, okay, I should be grateful for that. We don't want to be shooting all over ourselves or shooting over our gratitude. We want to be in connection with ourselves and connection with the situation that's presenting. So gratitude is simply the appreciation for the positive in a situation, or the appreciation for the positive in a thing. And in this case, in the exercise that Isla did with me, was her heart. And two exercises that I think are very powerful to start learning how to supercharge your gratitude is, the first one we did was, you find a challenge and you think of 3 gifts that are presented to you directly because of the challenge. Gifts that allow you to develop personally, interpersonally, professionally. Gifts that allow you to question your thinking and maybe come up with better answers for yourself. Gifts that allow you to engage in life or within the challenge that was presented to you directly, again, because of the challenge. And then number 2, what we ended off with Isla, was the supercharged gratitude tool of picking something you're grateful for and then asking yourself or somebody else why they're grateful for that thing 5 or 10 times, taking the answer and going a step deeper each time to recognize that you're not just grateful for that thing because it's nice, but you're grateful for that thing because it aligns and it reminds you of the best of who you are. And when we can apply gratitude this way in our lives, we don't just supercharge gratitude for the moment, but we use it, the insights that are derived from those exercises, as an ongoing companion throughout our lives.
Thank you for listening, friends. What shifted for you during this episode? We'd love to hear your insights. Write us with any questions, commentary, or episode ideas at theshift@mindshiftleadership.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, we would deeply appreciate a like and subscribe.
The Shift is brought to you by MindShift Leadership, a heart-centered, evidence-based, mindset-powered leadership company, empowering you with the training to prioritize mental health, inclusion, and performance optimization.